Picture the scene. It's 2007. We're in a hospital room in East London. In a bed is a 19-year-old woman. A few days ago, she was found in a flat in Walthamstow, barely conscious, with catastrophic head injuries. She has been in a coma for 3 days. She has survived, but only just. The right side of her body will not do what she tells it to. And when she opens her mouth to speak, the words will not come. The injury has taken her speech. She knows who did this to her. She just cannot say it. Beside the bed is her mother, and her mother has an idea. She finds a whiteboard and a marker pen, and she starts to write names on it. The names of people her daughter knows, friends, acquaintances, men, one name at a time, holding the board up so her daughter can see. Name after name, nothing. And then she writes one particular name, and her daughter, who cannot speak, who can barely move, starts hitting the board, striking it with her fist again and again and again. So hello everyone, this is Picture the Scene podcast. My name is Andy. Rach is currently away at the moment, so I'm just recording a few episodes while she's away, trying a few different styles out, so please bear with me. I hope it's enjoyable for you. So that name that she pointed out is at the center of this story, but it's not where this story starts, because a young woman in a hospital bed was not the first, and the name on that whiteboard had been written down before. It had been printed on court documents, spoken in the Old Bailey, read out by a jury foreman 5 years earlier. To understand what happened in a hospital room and what happened next, which would quietly make English legal history, we need to go back 10 years to South London, to a 15-year-old girl called Cassandra McDermott. Norbury sits in South London, between Streatham and Croydon. Terrace streets, red brick, the tram's not far away. In the late 1990s, this is where the McDermott family live. Jennifer McDermott is raising her daughters here. She works as a probation officer, so she knows better than most what people are capable of, and she runs her home accordingly. Rules, boundaries, curfews. Cassandra is her youngest daughter. Everyone calls her Cassie. In 1997, she is 15 years old, a schoolgirl, bright and warm. The kind of daughter who notices when her mum is running on empty and tells her to book a holiday. Her older sisters adore her. This is a close family, a talking family, which is what makes the next part so hard. In 1997, Cassandra met a young man. His name is Mario Celaire. He is 19, 4 years older than her, and he's a footballer, a semi-professional, a defender who will go on to play for clubs including Maidstone United. He is confident, physically imposing, good-looking, and he has a particular shine that comes off a young man who is good at sport. But Jennifer is having none of it. Cassandra is 15. Her mother tells her plainly, no boyfriends, you are too young. And on paper, that is that. In reality, though, the relationship carries on. Cassandra starts saying out loud, sometimes she does not come home at all. Jennifer worries the way mothers do, without knowing exactly what she's worrying about. When nobody in the house knows, not her mother, not her sisters, is what is actually happening inside that relationship. Years later, the court would hear that Mario was controlling and violent, and that he regularly hit Cassie. Her family had no idea. She never told them. Her sister Andrea has said since. The family was shocked to learn what Cassandra had been carrying along, because if she had told them, they would have said leave him. They would have said all sorts of things, but they never got the chance. And I want to sit with that for a second, because it is a quiet engine of this whole story. Domestic abuse thrives on exactly this. A loving family, a talking family, and a young woman who still felt that she could not say it out loud. If that is you, or someone you love, there is nothing unusual about that silence. It's the most common thing in the world. It's what abuse is designed to produce. By late 2001, Cassandra is 19. She has a job. She has a life ahead of her, and she has made a decision. The relationship with Mario Celaire is over. She has ended it. She is doing the thing we always say we want women in her position to do. She is leaving. In November 2001, Jennifer McDermott is not in London. She is in Jamaica, visiting friends and family. And she is there, essentially because of Cassie. It was Cassie who noticed her mum was exhausted. It was Cassie who came home with holiday brochures and insisted You need a break, Mum. Go. Relax. So Jennifer went, and Cassie stayed at her mother's house in Granville Gardens, Norbury. On the 26th of November 2001, Cassandra McDermott is at that house. At some point that day, she is attacked. She is beaten about the head repeatedly and left unconscious on the floor. And while she is unconscious, she chokes on her own vomit. Nobody calls an ambulance. Nobody raises the alarm. Whoever did this simply leaves her there and pulls a duvet over her body. It's her sister Andrea who finds her. Andrea lets herself into the house and is struck by how quiet it is. The house is completely silent. She goes upstairs into her mother's bedroom and she sees Cassandra on the floor, covered by the duvet. She pulls it back. She can see the bruising. And she has described that moment since with a terrible, simple clarity. The way Cassie was lying was not natural, and she knew immediately that her sister had been killed. Cassandra McDermott was 19 years old. Thousands of miles away in Jamaica, Jennifer's phone rings. It's a family friend, and Jennifer has described standing at the side of the road and screaming. The police confirmed it to her over the phone. Then came the longest flight of her life, back to London, to a house that was now a crime scene, and to an appointment at the mortuary where she could see her daughter only through a glass panel. She could see the bruises on her, and she was not allowed to touch her. She wanted to hold her daughter, to rock her, and she could not. You know, every people, listeners, friends, every episode of this show, we try to keep the person at the centre, not the case. So before we go any further, Cassandra McDermott was a 19-year-old woman who booked her exhausted mum a holiday, who was loved fiercely by a house full of sisters who had just found the strength to leave a violent man. That is who this story is about. Let's not forget that, please. So, now, who killed her? The Metropolitan Police opened a murder investigation led by officers including Detective Chief Inspector Nick Scholar. As with most killings of young women, the first questions are the closest ones. Who was in her life? Who had access? Who had history? Suspicion falls quickly on the ex-boyfriend, Mario Celaire. When detectives bring him in, Celaire does something that is worth paying attention to. He does not deny being with Cassandra. He admits he had spent time with her, which, incidentally, neatly explains away any traces of him in the house. He hands the police a short, prepared written statement. In it, he says he saw Cassandra on Thursday, that he was with her for around 3 hours, that when he left, she was alive. And then he stops talking. He will not say which 3 hours. He will not answer questions. That is the account, and that is all that they are getting. So detectives do it the long way. This is 2001, before smartphones exist as we know them now, before location histories, but there's still phone records, calls made and received, activity. Police use them to piece together Cassandra's final day and Mario's movement around it. By 2002, the Crown Prosecution Service believed there is enough. Mario Celaire is charged in connection with Cassandra's death, and the case goes to the Old Bailey. He stands trial for murder, with manslaughter as an alternative. For the McDermott family, this is the moment the system is supposed to work, but does it? The trial takes place at the Old Bailey in 2002. The prosecution's case is, in essence, essential. There are no eyewitnesses. There is no confession. There is a relationship, the timeline, the phone evidence, and the prepared statement of a man who placed himself with the victim on the day she died and then declines to elaborate. And there is something the jury does not hear. Under the rules of evidence as they stood in 2002, juries were generally not told about defendants' previous convictions. The thinking, and it's not a stupid thinking, is that a jury should try the evidence in front of them, not a person's past. So the jury trying Mario Celaire had no idea that as a teenager he had been convicted of a serious violent sexual offence against a vulnerable girl, and he'd served time in custody for it. And we're going to come back to that. But the point for now is simply this. The 12 people in the jury box were shown a very partial picture of a man in a dock. Was the law working exactly as designed? The jury goes out. They deliberate for less than 3 hours. Not guilty of murder. Not guilty of manslaughter. Mario Celaire walks out of the Old Bailey a free man. So I want to be really careful here, and I would ask you to be careful too. That jury did not do anything wrong. They tried the case that they were given on the evidence that they were given, and the evidence they were given did not prove it. That's not a failure of 12 citizens. If it's afraid of anything, it's afraid of what the law allowed into the room. So hold the anger that you're feeling. I hope you are feeling angry right now. But let's aim it accurately, shall we? For the family, though, the effort is destroying, because in 2002, an acquittal is not a pause, it's the end. We'll stop. English law at that point contains a principle roughly 800 years old, going back to the medieval courts. The rule against double jeopardy. Once you have been convicted of an offence, you can never be tried for it again, ever. It does not matter what turns up later. New witnesses, new science, even a signed confession in the defendant's own hand. None of it matters. The acquittal is final. And there are good reasons that rule existed. It stops the state prosecuting someone over and over until it gets an answer it wants. It gives verdicts finality. It protects the innocent people from harassment by prosecution. And for 8 centuries, that was a deal. But let's look at it from Jennifer McDermott's side of the glass panel, shall we? Her daughter is dead. She believes she knows who did it, and the law has just told her, permanently and irreversibly, this is over. So a few months after the trial, Jennifer is walking down Tooting High Street when her blood runs cold. Ahead of her, she recognises the back of a familiar figure. It is Mario, free in the sunshine, strolling through South London. And Jennifer, the probation officer, a woman who has spent her life, her working life inside the justice system, does not just walk past. She confronts him right there in the street. She shouted at him words to the effect of, "You murdered my daughter, and you have the audacity to be walking in Tooting." And Mario comes over to her, and he says, "It's not me. It is not me. I did not do it." He tells the grieving mother that he knows who really did it, and that he says he's going to call her. But you know what? A call never comes. And that, in 2002, is where the story of Cassandra McDermott legally ends. An unsolved killing that is not even officially unsolved, because the only man ever charged with it has been acquitted and can never be charged again. The file effectively closes. But let's move forward 5 years, shall we? Let's cross the river. Let's go northeast to Walthamstow. Kara Hoyte is 19 years old. She's from East London. She is striking, and she has ambitions of modelling. She is, and I want you to notice this, the same age Cassie was, a 19-year-old woman with her life in front of her, and she is in a relationship with a man in his late 20s, a former semi-professional footballer, calming, confident, physically imposing Mario Celaire. At some point at his home, Kara comes across some paperwork, court papers, legal documents relating to a trial at the Old Bailey in 2002, in which her boyfriend was acquitted of killing a previous girlfriend, a young woman named Cassandra McDermott. So imagine finding that, people. Imagine holding those papers in your hand. But Kara does not run. She does what a lot of us would like to think we would do, and which takes far more courage than we admit. She confronts him. She asks him straight out about Cassandra, and Mario Celaire confesses. By Kara's later account, he told her that he had killed Cassandra. He framed it as a kind of an accident, a mistake, that she fell and hit her head, but the core of it was out of his mouth. The man the jury had acquitted told Kara Hoyte that he had killed Cassandra McDermott, which meant that Kara Hoyte was now the only person in the world outside that acquittal who carried the truth. She had heard it directly. She was a witness, and detectives would later come to believe this is precisely what nearly got her killed. In 2007, fighting Walthamstow, Kara Hoyte is attacked with a hammer. The details, as ever on this show, only to the extent that you need them. She is struck about the head, her skull is fractured in 3 places, and she is left for dead in a pool of blood. She is found barely conscious. She is 19 years old. Police believe the motive was silence, that Mario attacked Kara to stop her ever telling anyone what he had told her. So Kara is rushed to the hospital. She falls into a coma. Her mother, Eunice Lander, keeps vigil at her bedside. Officers make Eunice a promise. We will find out who did this to her. After 3 days, Kara wakes. She cannot speak. The injury has taken her words and partially paralysed her. But her mind, her memory, her knowledge of exactly who did this, of all that is intact, locked inside. And this is the scene that we opened with. Because it is Eunice, her mum, who finds a way through the whiteboard, the marker pen, the names of every man Kara knows, written up one at a time. And when Eunice writes the name Mario Celaire, Kara starts striking the board with her fist. Again and again and again. There he is, identified from a hospital bed by a young woman he left for dead, using the only means she has left. It takes 9 more months of recovery before Kara is well enough to give detectives a full account. When she can finally communicate what happened, she tells them 2 things: that Mario Celaire attacked her, and that before he attacked her, he had confessed to killing Cassandra McDermott. So in 2007, Celaire is charged with the attempted murder of Kara Hoyte. Somewhere in the Crown Prosecution Service and in the Metropolitan Police, and eventually on the desk of the Director of Public Prosecutions himself, a second, much stranger question starts to form. What about Cassandra? Because he was acquitted of that, and the acquittal is final. And it's been final for 800 years, except that, quietly, while nobody in this story was watching, the law had changed. To explain what happens next, I need to take you briefly out of South London and into Westminster, because this is one of those rare true crime stories when Act of Parliament is a plot twist. Through the 1990s, pressure had been building on a double jeopardy rule, and the biggest single driver was the murder of Stephen Lawrence. The Macpherson inquiry into that case reported in 1999, and amongst its recommendations was that the rule against double jeopardy should be re-examined, so that in exceptional circumstances, in exceptional cases, with fresh evidence, an acquittal could be revisited. The Law Commission looked at it, and in 2003, Parliament acted. The Criminal Justice Act 2003, under then Home Secretary David Blunkett, did something genuinely radical. Part 10 of that Act abolished the absolute bar on double jeopardy for a narrow list of the most serious offences. Murder was among those offences. From April 2005, when Part 10 came into force, an acquittal for a qualifying offence was no longer necessarily the end. But on this matter, Parliament did not simply throw the old prosecution away. They built a gauntlet. If prosecutors want to put an acquitted person back on trial, all of the following have to happen. The Director of Public Prosecutions has to personally consent to the application, not an office, not a delegate, the DPP himself or themselves personally. The Court of Appeal, some of the most senior judges in the country, has to be satisfied that there is new and compelling evidence. New, meaning it was not available at the original trial. Compelling, meaning reliable, substantial, and highly probative of guilt. The court also has to be satisfied that a real retrial is in the interest of justice, and that the person can still receive a fair trial after all the intervening publicity and delay. You only get one shot, one retrial, that is it. So it's deliberately a very high wall. In the 2 decades since, only a tiny handful of cases have ever cleared it. The first person retried under Part 10 was Billy Dunlop in 2006 for the murder of Julie Hogg in Teesside after he had confessed. And I may well cover that case on the show one day. But now, look at what the Crown has in the Mario Celaire file. Sitting alongside the attempted murder charge, they have Kara Hoyte, a witness who did not exist in 2002, a witness whom the acquitted man confessed in his own words that he killed Cassandra McDermott, evidence that is unquestionably new. Evidence that is, on any sensible view, compelling. So the Director of Public Prosecutions gives his personal consent. The Crown applies to the Court of Appeal to quash the 2002 acquittal. And here's where Kara Hoyte's courage meets its final test. Because Mario Celaire's lawyers have an argument. And it's exactly the argument you would expect. They point to Kara's injuries, the brain damage, the speech impairment. How, they ask, can this witness fairly give evidence? How can her account be tested? So think about the cruelty embedded in that submission. The injuries he had inflicted on her being deployed as a reason her evidence of his confession should not be heard. On the 17th of March 2009, the Court of Appeal gives its answer. The case is heard by the Lord Chief Justice himself, Lord Judge, sitting with Mr. Justice Irwin and Mr. Justice Wynne Williams. The judgment is reported as R.V. Celaire 2009. Court finds that Kara's evidence of the confession is new and compelling, and it rejects the arguments about her injuries, and that her giving evidence will not make the trial unfair. Brain injury does not disqualify her truth. 2002 acquittal of Mario Celaire is quashed, and for the first time in this story, for the first time in 800 years of this kind of story, where it's not guilty or unwritten, there would be a retrial. Cassandra McDermott's case is open again. So in 2009, Mario Celaire, now 31, lived in Sydenham, is back at the Old Bailey in the same court he walked out of in 2002. Only this time, he faces two sets of charges together, the manslaughter of Cassandra McDermott and the attempted murder of Kara Hoyte. And this time, there is no contest. Faced with Kara, alive, recovered enough to testify and legally clear to do so, Mario folds. He pleads guilty to the manslaughter of Cassandra McDermott, the killing the jury once acquitted him of. Guilty to the attempted murder of Kara Hoyte. 7.5 years after Andrea pulled back that duvet, someone finally stands in a courtroom and admits what was done to Cassie, to their Cassie. At the sentencing hearing on the 2nd of July 2009, the court hears who Mario Celaire actually is. The picture the 2002 jury never saw. It hears he was a controlling man with a history of violence against women who regularly hit Cassie, and it hears about his past. At the age of 15, he had taken part in a gang rape of a 17-year-old girl with learning disabilities, for which he was sentenced to 5 years, reduced to 4 on appeal. Judge Paul Worsley, QC, sentences him to 2 life sentences to run concurrently. On the manslaughter of Cassandra, minimum term is set at 8 years. On the attempted murder of Kara, minimum term is set at 23 years, and that is a figure that controls. Celaire will serve at least 23 years before he can even be considered for release, and he will be on license for life. So you will sometimes see this case reported with the 8-year figure in the headline, and I want to flag it because it's genuinely misleading number on its own. The 8 years attaches only to the manslaughter count. The sentence that governs his imprisonment is life with a minimum term of 23 years. And the judge's remarks deserve to be heard because they put both young women side by side where they belong. Judge Worsley told Mario that his delay in admitting the charges so long after the offences was callous and calculating. He spoke of Cassandra's family, who no longer have the joy of seeing her progress through life, and of Kara's family, left with the heartache of a life forever changed. Then he told Mario Celaire this, and I'm going to quote it because I don't think I could put it any better. Both girls were vulnerable. They were alone. They trusted you. They let you into their homes where they thought they were safe. That's her autonomy of this kind of violence in one sentence from the bench. So let us take stock of what actually happened here, because this is bigger than one case. Mario Celaire is widely recognised as the first person in England and Wales to be convicted of an offence after a jury acquittal was quashed under the model double jeopardy rules. Billy Dunlop came first through the Part 10 door in 2006, but Dunlop had never been positively acquitted by a jury in the same way, and his case turned on his own confession to others. Celaire was a man the jury had actually cleared. Not guilty verdicts were then unwritten by the Court of Appeal and on new and compelling evidence, and who was then convicted. 3 years later, the same mechanism would produce its most famous result. Gary Dobson, previously acquitted, was convicted of the murder of Stephen Lawrence. That case made global headlines. This one, the quiet first, made comparatively few, which is a part of why I'm telling it today. But I do not want to end on the law. I like to end on the people. I want to end on the people. Kara Hoyte survived Mario Celaire, identified him with a fist on a whiteboard, and then when his lawyers argued her injury should silence her, she was ruled competent to speak, on the prospect of facing her put confession in his mouth at last. Jennifer McDermott said it plainly: without Kara, there would have been no conviction. Kara has lived ever since with the permanent effects of that attack, and her family has said her condition has worsened in more recent years. Her mother Eunice, the woman with the marker pen, the woman who found a way for her daughter to name him, died just 2 years after Mario Celaire was finally brought to justice. She lived long enough to hold on to that. And the McDermotts, Jennifer and Cassandra's sisters, did something with their grief that very few families manage. They built an organisation in Cassandra's name, the Cassandra Centre, a charity in South London supporting young people affected by domestic abuse. Exactly the safe space Cassandra herself never found her way to. Jennifer's message to parents, drawn from the hardest possible experience, is disarmingly simple. talk to your children, keep talking to them, keep the lines open, and always tell them that you love them. Because Cassandra came from a loving, talking family, and she could still not say it. The silence isn't not the family's failure, it is the abuser's design. I don't know why I almost got a tear to my eye then. It's just so hard, these people. I don't understand how anyone could abuse someone like this. It really, I never will understand it. But anyway, Cassandra McDermott would be in her mid-40s now. Somewhere out there is a life she was old. The career, maybe the kids, the holidays she would have booked for her mum, the birthdays with her sisters. She was 19. She was loved. And she had just done the bravest thing a person in her situation can do. She left. So this has been Picture the Scene podcast. Her name was Cassandra McDermott. Her name was Kara Hoyte. Remember them.